All right. The Cincinnati Bengals are one of the teams that I think is going to be contending for the number one overall pick in the 2020 NFL draft. Here's a team that's coming off a 6-10 record, so they were picking, in the top 12 of the 2019 NFL draft. From what I've seen, their offseason acquisitions, their coaching changes, their draft, I just don't have very high hopes for the Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, we start off with their head coach, Zach Taylor. Um, it was an up and coming coach. He had that Sean McVay rub. But the thing that we got to look at him is he was, it's not like he was Sean McVay's coordinator for these past couple of years, and they've had all this success with their offense and that. So he's only been their quarterback coach for a year. Prior to that, he was an assistant wide receivers coach, and I just I don't have a whole lot of faith in him. I mean, he kind of bounced around the NFL before that. It's not like he was this hot young quarterbacks coach that people were dying to hire as their offensive coordinator. He kind of bounced around. He was Miami's offensive quarterbacks coach and then offensive coordinator. He was their offensive coordinator for just a year. He went to the University of Cincinnati and was their offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach, and didn't really set uh, the world on fire with his play calling and offense there. So he's real young, he's real inexperienced, and he's taken over pretty much a veteran laden Bengals team. And how is he going to do this? And not only how is this offense going to go? But what about this defense? He ends up hiring Lou Anarumo. I butchered that, so I'm sorry, as his defensive coordinator, but I think he was like their fourth or fifth option. I mean, the story of the coaching carousel was who was going to turn down Zach Taylor next for their defensive coordinator job. So I think the fact that he's a young quarterback, young coach, not a lot of experience, defensive coordinator was just a guy that they had to settle for. Not a lot of a promise there. Now, when it came to the 2019 NFL Draft, I loved their first overall pick. They took Jonah Williams, the left tackle from Alabama. I thought he could be an all-pro guard. I thought he'd be a very good starting left tackle or right tackle. They drafted him there, so I thought it was a great steal. And then everything looked like it was setting up for them. He was going to be their left tackle. They were going to move Cordy Glenn, who struggled the previous year. They were going to move him into left guard, move Clint Bowling over to the right side, and now you've got a left tackle to, in center, Billy Price is a young guy that's had some good experience. They were going to have four guys that you could consider quality offensive linemen. I'm assuming Jonah Williams was going to pan out, and the offensive line was looking good. But then Jonah Williams gets hurt. He's out for the year, tears his ACL. So now you have to move Cordy Glenn back out to left tackle, where he struggled last year. Okay, whatever. They got Clint, and then Clint Bowling retires. So now this what was thought to be a potential strength from left tackle to right guard, now it's just the center there, and it raises a lot of the same issues that the Bengals have had the last several years of not having a good offensive line. When the Bengals were not great, but when they were making 5 straight playoff appearances, they had a good offensive line. They don't have that anymore, and that's one of the big reasons that they've struggled. I'm not a big fan of their weapons either. AJ Green's a stud, but he's kind of fallen back just because teams can kind of focus in on him. Tyler Boyd's a solid slot, but he's nothing to kind of bat your eyes at. John Ross they took with a high first-round pick. He hasn't panned out. And then they really haven't attacked it. I mean, who else is this? Alex Erickson, Cody Core are those guys that are going to help elevate this offense, help elevate Andy Dalton. They were 26 in yards per game last year. They were 30th in total points. I mean, Joe Mixon's got all the potential to be an elite back in this league, but he's got a poor offensive line. He's got no weapons to take the pressure off. Andy Dalton's regressing. Is Zach Taylor going to be able to revive Andy Dalton? I don't know. I mean, Andy Dalton's always been a guy that I thought you had to put weapons around. And he's not got an offensive line. Other than A.J. Green, the receivers aren't good. This spells a lot of trouble for this offense. We flip it over to the defensive side. This defense for the longest time was one of most underrated defenses out there. They weren't a team that was going to be, the Chicago Bears or the Seattle Seahawks, but they were still good. But last year they finished last in yards given up. They were 28th in sacks, and they just really don't have impact players. Geno Atkins is good, but once again, I think he's starting to regress. He had 10 sacks last year. Can he, that's pretty good for a defensive tackle, but that shouldn't be leading your team. Carlos Dunlap had 8, Sam Hubbard had 6, but outside of that, they didn't really have much production. Jordan Willis was a day 2 pick that they were high on. He tested well. He kind of fell off in year 2. Carl Lawson was supposed to be this guy that was supposed to take that next step. He's really struggled last year. Can they get those guys going? I like their secondary. Jesse Bates was one of my favorite players in the draft a couple years ago. William Jackson is another solid cornerback, but they don't have any impact players on their defense. They don't have any, other than Geno, they don't have any elite players, and I think Geno is kind of starting to fall out of that elite category into the very, very good. So when you take all this stuff together, 6-10 record last year, new coaching staff that's really inexperienced and not, to be honest, not really highly thought of, a lacking of impact players, I think this team has a great shot of picking with the number 1 overall pick in the 2020 NFL Draft.